Ciao, I'm Mary Ann Esposito. Today on Ciao Italia, conquering zucchini. It could not be a more perfect day in this garden. This is the Ciao Italia garden. And guess what time it is? It's time to pick that plant that has 9 lives. And I mean zucchini. So no Italian garden would be without zucchini. So let me show you what we have, because we have many types of zucchini here. And we always kind of plant the Italian varieties. So this one here, see, is Romanesco. And I am going to harvest it. And when you get zucchini in your garden, first of all, this is very prickly. These are very prickly, so you should wear gloves. But you see what's happening here. You can see the different stages of zucchini. Look at this little one. And the flower here is kind of just starting to come. Here's one that's open. Now these flowers, Italians love to stuff. And when you get them, I don't want to take that, otherwise my husband will kill me because it's just starting. When you get these, you want to look inside. You see that right there? That's called the pistil. You have to take that out. And then you can stuff the flowers with all kinds of things like cheese and meats and other vegetables. But when they're this size, that's when you want to get them. Ah, there it is. Gorgeous. And that's the size you want, because now you have very few seeds. It's not watery. And it's great for doing all kinds of things. And this is why I say zucchini has 9 lives, because what can you do with it? Well, you can saute it. You can fry it. You can make it into soup. You can grate it. You can put it in meatloaf. There's so many ways you can use it. And I'm going to show you what we're going to do with this today, nella cucina. So you and I need to go nella cucina for zucchini with 9 lives. The problem is, once that you get all of that zucchini out of the garden, and as you know, you should pick them when they're small, because they can get away from you. You know, you're going to have to sleep out in the garden in order to avoid those baseball bat sizes. Because when zucchini are small and tender like this, they have very few seeds and they're drier. They don't have a lot of water. So I like to get them when they're small. And then of course you've got to think about, how are you going to use all of these zucchini? So you've made the zucchini soup, you've made the zucchini fritters, you've done everything you can think about to do with zucchini, but have you made zucchini fig bread? I bet you haven't. And so today, that's what I'm going to do for you. So you want to start by having some good zucchini on hand. So this is a wonderful bread. It's a great tea bread. And we want to start with some flour in a bowl. So about 2 cups of flour. And then we want to add, a little bit of cloves. I like about 1/4 teaspoon of those. 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder. 2 teaspoons of baking soda, a pinch of salt. So that's your dry ingredient mixture. So you just want to mix this up. This is very easy to do in a bowl. You want to use a stand mixer, you can do that. So mix it all around so it's all well blended. And then we're just going to set this aside while we work with the wet ingredients. So let me put that over here and get the next thing going. So the next thing are our wet ingredients. So for that, in a separate bowl, you want to have 3 eggs. I like to start with large eggs for this. So 3 large eggs. And I'll tell you, when I have zucchini in the garden, at night I sneak over to my neighbors and I just leave it at their doorstep because I have so much of it, I don't know what to do with it. So there are the eggs. And now we're going to just whip those up a little bit. Get them fluffy by beating in some air. Okay, that looks good. Now we want sugar. Here's about 1.5 cups of sugar. That goes in. And beat that in. Get that well blended. When you don't feel the machine or your little hand mixer making any kind of gritty feeling with the beaters, you know that you've mixed it enough. So if you can still kind of gauge it, it's a little gritty at the base of the mixing bowl, you want to beat it until you don't sense that anymore, because that's going to make a really fluffy bread. Okay, then we need some fat in this, and for this we're using oil. So you can either use olive oil if you want to, you could use a sunflower oil, safflower oil. So you add 3/4 cup of oil, and then you beat again. Meanwhile, you have your oven on ahead of time, preheated to 350 degrees. That looks good. And now a little vanilla. Vanilla, it's really the extract. You don't want to have just flavoring. You want the extract, which is 35% alcohol. And you mix that in. All right, that's looking good. Now we need to add our dry and wet mixture together. So here's our flour. I'm going to, oh, wait a minute, before I do that, I forgot, got to add the zucchini. So here's the zucchini, really dry zucchini. So what we did was we shredded the zucchini, and then we laid it out on a cookie sheet, put it in the oven, and just dried it out for about 20 minutes to take out that excess moisture, because we don't want the cake to be too wet. So 2 cups of shredded zucchini go in. Now we can add the dry ingredients. So there's our flour mixture with our spices. That goes in. And we mix this up. So that's well blended. There's a lot of different flavors going on here, because not only do you have the spices, we're going to add some fruit to this and some nuts. Okay, so now we have this. We want to add some lemon zest. Lemon and zucchini go together beautifully. Did you know that? So the grated zest of a lemon, a large lemon, because that'll give you, I would say, about a tablespoon of the zest. Okay, that's good. There's the zest. And then with that, we want to have figs. Now, where did I come up with this idea? Well, I have a fig tree in my yard. So every year I gather the figs and I think, oh, what am I going to do with them? So we eat them fresh. That's the best way to have them. But if you don't have fresh figs, which you could use in this batter, then you're using dried figs, which you can find in the grocery store. Come in a package like that, see? You get yourself a package of dried figs and then you just chop them up. So a cup of dried figs, chopped dried figs, goes in. This is what I mean by there's a lot of different flavors going on here. And then I like nuts with this too. So a cup of nuts, walnuts, almonds, whatever it is that you like. And now we're going to fold that in. This is going to make 2 breads, one for you and one to give. Look at how thick that is. It's a really great tea bread. It's not too sweet, and it's just perfect. It's a great, great thing to make that you can freeze, actually, and you can give it to somebody as a gift. So really fold in all of those ingredients really, really well. You could also put this all in one bunt pan if you wanted to make one big one, but I like to divide the batter in half. You could also use cupcakes. cupcake molds to make smaller ones, or tiny little cake molds to fill. Okay, that's looking good. So now let's get our containers. Move this over. So when I do this, you can either use a regular size loaf pan, or I think this is a great thing to have. These are just paper. Okay, you can buy these in the grocery store. Then guess what? You don't have to wash anything, and you can give it away in the container that you bake in. You can actually bake in these. So now we want to fill them. So these are 8 by 4 by almost 4 inches. So 2 of those if you're going to do this size. So let's try to fill one neatly. I want to come up about 3/4 of the way. Don't put it all to the top in one. Kind of just play with it. Then you can go back and even them out. Oh, I'm so glad I've got muscles in my arms because holding this pan. Okay, so now I'm going to just take the rest of this and spoon it evenly between the two. And these are going to bake, depending on your oven, I would say about 35 to 40 minutes. You're going to have to use a cake tester placed in the center of this. And if it comes out clean, you know that the cake is done. You don't want the cake to be too dry. And then after these are baked, I'm going to put a nice little glaze over the top of them. So that fills 2 of those pans neatly. Just wipe up that edge. Give them a little tap. They're ready. The oven's on at 350, and in they go. So, 2 fig zucchini breads, one for you and one for me. Next up, meatballs made out of zucchini. Here we have more shredded zucchini. So what we did with this, like we did for the cake, is we spread the shredded zucchini out on a baking sheet, turned on the oven till it was heated, a couple minutes, maybe at 250, then turned off the oven and let the zucchini sit in the oven for about 20 minutes or so, just to get it a little drier. So here it is, it's all ready to go. I would say in this bowl I have about 4 cups of shredded zucchini. So we're going to make a meatball with this, basically the way you would do regular meatballs at home. So I'm going to put this aside and get ourselves some garlic first. So we want to chop up some garlic. And believe me, when I make these for people, they are very surprised that this is not meat. They can't believe it's zucchini. And it's a perfect thing to do for kids. They hate broccoli, they hate vegetables. Well, don't even tell them what's in this. And in Italy, these types of meatballs are made very frequently with vegetables. So you have eggplant meatballs. I'm sure you've seen me do eggplant meatballs on our show before. Zucchini meatballs. I did mushroom meatballs. So there's a variety of vegetable type meatballs that you can do. All right, so here we have our shredded, or not our shredded, but our minced garlic. So in a large bowl, you want some breadcrumbs, fresh breadcrumbs. So this is about 1 1/4 cups of dry breadcrumbs. And to that, we're going to add that zucchini. So there's all the zucchini. This goes together very quickly. Now you can either, when you do this, you can either fry the zucchini meatballs, or you can bake the zucchini meatballs, either one. There's the garlic. Now we want some salt, a piacere, as they say, to taste. Some pepper, again, to taste. Dried or fresh oregano, so teaspoon or more if you want, goes in. So that's our oregano. Parsley, flat leaf Italian. It's all about the green today. And then we want some cheese. And here, we want this cheese. That's the cheese we want. This is Pecorino Romano cheese, a sheep's milk cheese. And this is a saltier tasting cheese and a cow's milk cheese. You'll recognize the real thing by looking on the rind and seeing the words Pecorino Romano. And here you'll see the stylized sheep head, which is kind of like the logo. And we're going to add about 2/3 of a cup of the grated Pecorino Romano cheese. I'm just going to give this great flavor. You mix that all around. Get all those ingredients well mixed together, all the breadcrumbs. So everything is just well blended. And then we're going to have to bind this with eggs. And pour that over the mixture. Okay. And then get that all well mixed together. It should be moist. If it isn't, you'll have to add another egg. All right, now I have to put the spoon down and really get in there. So we have some flour handy and a bake dish. If you're baking these, your oven's on at 350, you've got a greased bake dish, you've got some flour handy, and you've got this mixture, so now you really have to get it all well blended. I like to serve these on a bed of tomato sauce. So since I had all those tomatoes growing in the garden as well, you know, a cook has to think outside the garden, has to think about how he or she is going to utilize all of these wonderful foods that they've grown and are coming into their kitchen. So this is just a clever way to use up a lot of extra zucchini, and you can see that this is just the right amount of moisture for this. There's no water in the base of the bowl, so I know that it's good to go. Okay, so now once we have that, it's just a matter of making these as big or little as you want them to be. So if you want them a meatball size, and to a lot of people, the size of a meatball is relative. So take some of the mixture and just roll it around in your hands till it's nice and compact like that. And then you want to dip it in flour, see? Like that. Shake off the excess flour. That's just going to give it a nice little crusty coating on the outside. Doesn't have to be a lot of flour, just a little. And you put it in your bake dish. Okay? And then you just keep going like that until you have enough to put in the oven. How about we make some zucchini sandwiches? So, to do it, I'm going to beat up a couple eggs. And then we're going to give this some salt. Again, a piacere, pepper. And I'm going to use some oregano for this. You could either use dried or fresh oregano, as much as you would like. That's about a half a teaspoon maybe. So there's our egg mixture. So let me show you how the zucchini goes. So here we have the zucchini, and we cut them up into small pieces like this. So all we have to do, let me make a few for you so you can see. This is a great little appetizer. It's a great way to have lunch. So here we have some, you can use any kind of cheese you want for this, but this is Asiago, and you'll recognize it by the words on the rind, Asiago. It's a cheese that comes from the Veneto, and I actually visited the town of Asiago where this cheese is made. It's a cow's milk cheese, an alpine cheese. It's a wonderful eating cheese. It's also a great melting cheese, and we're going to use it for our zucchini today. So we have it grated here. So all we did was cut the zucchini up in these cute little squares, and you want to just press some of the cheese on each piece to make a sandwich. See? Just like that, press it on. This is such a great way to use up zucchini. By the time I'm done with this show, we will have used up all the zucchini in the garden. So just press on as much cheese as you like, and then just make a sandwich like that, and that, and that. And you set those aside, and then you have a little system going here. So you have flour. Now you put them in flour, okay, like that. So dust them in flour, turn them over. Then you put them in that beaten egg, one at a time, like so. And then you put them in breadcrumb. And make sure you're using good breadcrumbs that you've made yourself. Beautiful little sandwich. You leave it right there. Who's not going to want to eat this? Forget the peanut butter and jelly. This is what you should be eating. And the nice thing is, you gave up the bread, so to speak, except for the little breadcrumbs. Again, and you can make a slew of these. There's our fourth one. Sometimes I make them at this point, I put them in the refrigerator uncovered, and that really helps the breadcrumbs to adhere, so when you go to fry them in oil, it doesn't come off. And here is our next one. More breadcrumbs. And once you have all of this together, you've done all of the sandwiches, you've breaded them, then you want to get some oil ready in a frying pan. You can use either a seed oil or you could use olive oil, but I like a seed oil for this. So now we're ready to fry. So you want to heat up some oil in a frying pan, and you have your sandwiches, and you carefully put them in. Because we want to get a nice crust on these. You fry them on one side until they're crusty. Use 2 spatulas so that you can turn them over easily enough. And don't crowd them. Aren't they pretty? They're really cute. Okay. And now we say 3 Hail Marys and we wait. Zucchini. It's quick to grow and even quicker to cook. And today we showed you 3 ways that you can do that, either with zucchini that's coming from your garden or the farmer's market, or you just have a hankering for it from the grocery store. So we started right here with this wonderful zucchini bread. Remember, we used the shredded zucchini for that. And then we used some walnuts, and we used figs and sugar and flour and eggs and cinnamon and cloves, and we made this delicious loaf. And you can cook it in a loaf pan, or why don't you try making it in smaller sizes to give as a little gift. And then you're going to fool them all with this one, zucchini meatballs. Remember, we made it just like a meatball. We used the same mixture, eggs and garlic and flour and salt and pepper and breadcrumbs. But we had no meat. We simply used zucchini, shredded again. And here it is on a bed of tomato sauce, all ready for the eating. And if you're still hungry and thinking about ways to use zucchini, these darling little cute zucchini sandwiches are just the ticket. And now it's golden brown and crispy and perfect. So until I see you nella cucina again, I'm Mary Ann Esposito. Ciao.